artificial intelligence, a subject about which I know very little. It seems to me that it will, on some level, have to be derived from a particular aspect of human understanding, of rationalism. So we're representing one aspect of our nature and prioritizing it. Logic, organization. But what you refer to as sort of primitive and monkey-ish, for me, it envelops and involves the most beautiful aspects of our nature. I'm a little romantic about human beings still. I feel that one of the great problems we've had is that philosophically we have overvalued materialism, rationalism, and knowing a little bit about philosophy primarily from that bloody podcast that you and I tagged a minute ago before we was recording. Who's that guy?
Philosophize This.
So what I understand for that is post-Enlightenment, we've started to prioritize rationalism. So if you prioritize rationalism and organization, which obviously has a lot to offer, the organization of resources is incredibly and hugely important, you forget that a huge part of the human experience is nothing to do with that. The other thing we were chatting about before we went live was DMT. Now, no artificial intelligence is going to understand that there is access to a realm of consciousness that continually exists, that doesn't seem to be bound by physical laws as we understand them. And if the physical laws that we abide by are parochial and relevant only to this level of existence, why are we allowing ideas resourced from there to govern all of our systems? Even listen to you talk about DMT and you say, I encountered these gestures, I went through this membrane into another realm. I took acid when I was a teenager, and even in very unhealthy, not unhealthy, but unbridled mad teenage boy conditions, I want to be there with a guy in a lab coat with a pen going, well, Mr. Brand, sit down, look at these Rorschach tests, instead of which I'm in New Cross in a bed sit, dropping acid and staring at my own hands and recognizing, oh my God, I'm not me. The very idea of me is a construct. I'm just tuned into a particular aspect. AI will build systems that are predicated on rationalism, organization, and on that basis, I can see why they would at some point, go all Skynet and annihilate us. But that is, I believe the problem with our society is that the materialistic aspect of our nature is not the priority. It's just one thing we should be doing. Of course we need good roads, of course we need hospitals, schools, food, etc. But we need to find a way of honouring the sacred. And I'm fascinated in the experiences you're having in these psychedelic explorations and how it's influencing the rest of your life. How you're saying, how does it influence the rest of your decisions, the way you see the world, the way you see relationships, the way you see the vulnerable young man you were prior to building your own, I say, personal religion of martial arts, excellence in your chosen field of stand-up comedy? How do you incorporate that vulnerable kid? Because I'm still very aware of the vulnerable person I was, and I'm going on a rant, man.
That's good.
When Kevin Hart was on here, who I think is amazing, and he was amazing on this, I thought, fucking hell, what have I got to offer the world when Kevin Hart has got this kind of force? You don't come in the bubble, and I was like, my God, this guy is so positive. What a role model. What a lot he's got to offer. And then I thought, well, like any of us, what I've got to offer is who I am. Just who I am as a vulnerable, flawed human being that still feels connected to the kid I was when I didn't feel good enough. I still feel that. I can walk in a room and feel that. Yeah. But I also know that that's not real, because I've had spiritual experiences, hallucinogenic experiences that make me feel that the relationships we should be building have to honour that we're vulnerable and flawed, but also capable of greatness. There has to be room for all of this. And I feel that part of what we're doing and part of why we're experiencing such superficial polarity in politics and culture is because we're not acknowledging that underneath this surface activity of left, right, and from Sam Harris, them little experiments, you stick garbage in front of someone, they become Republican pretty quickly, or you scare people, they become less democratic. I think all that stuff is pretty superficial, and at depth, in that realm of the jesters and the membrane of psychedelia, we have access to oneness, and that should be what's influencing the way we set up our tribes, our systems, and our relationships.
You ever been hypnotized?
Yeah, I got hypnotized. My mom hypnotized me and a wart came off my hand.
There's almost two battles with regard to big tech. One is just the size and scope and the social effect of big tech and all of that. But the other one is there's a group of people who really don't like alternative viewpoints being out there. And so they're going to stump as hard as they can to get people deplatformed and to use big tech as a way of siphoning off perspectives.
Well, you see that in those Project Veritas videos where the people who work for these organizations are so nonchalant about the way they're discussing, like they're at dinner, discussing how they suppress conservative voices. And if you're a person who has an understanding of the importance of free speech, which is one of the cornerstones of this country, you know that free speech works both ways. You have to hear another person's perspective, and then you argue your perspective and you see which perspective makes more logical sense. This is what free speech is all about. This is what growth is about. This is how we understand each other's points of view, and we learn about other people's opinions and ideas. And this is how you change your own opinions, ideas. You encounter some that enter into your mind that you go, wow, I never considered that. That's actually a good point. And then you shift your judgment. You shift your perspective. This is important for humans. It's always been important for humans. Echo chambers are fucking terrible. They're terrible in every way, shape, and form. And this idea that we're giving up these echo chambers, we're giving control of them to these fucking wokesters that work for corporations that can arbitrarily just decide, oh, this person talks about that, let's fucking shadow ban her. This person talks about this, let's ban their YouTube page. This person says data that's inconvenient for our narrative, let's silence them. That is fucking crazy, and it's completely un-American.
There's something perverse that's happened too, and that is, you can spot it in the language. So until 2016, remember, social media was everybody's friend. Everybody loved social media until 2016. The media were like big on social media. It was great. It had been used to reach out to new voters, and it had helped people in the Arab Spring and all this kind of stuff. And then Trump wins. And all of a sudden, on a dime, everybody switches to social media facilitated the spread of Russian disinformation. Now, my company is an online company. We spend a lot of time on places like Facebook, so we know what the numbers look like when you have high engagement. The number of people who are actually affected by so-called Russian disinformation over the course of the 2020 election, the number of people who access those posts is less than the number of people who access posts from my personal Facebook page over the course of maybe 3 weeks or a month. Okay, it was not a massive, huge wave of Russian disinformation that shifted the 2016 election. There had to be some excuse for why Trump had won. And so it was Russian disinformation. And then you saw there was this really interesting linguistic shift. They went from disinformation, which is an active thing, right? That's like the Russian government spreading things that are not true in order to subvert our politics, to misinformation, right? It's only one letter different, but it's completely different. Disinformation is a state actor or a terrorist group or some organized group pushing a perspective that is false in order to undermine the comity and cohesiveness of a community. Misinformation is just, it can be true, but if it's missing context or if it's presented in a way I don't like, it's misinformation.
Right.
And so now we have to target misinformation, and that can be anything. And not only that, we will set up a group of fact checkers who all happen to align with one political point of view. And these fact checkers will determine whether or not you have violated the ban on misinformation. And then we'll downgrade you on that basis. And it doesn't matter if the fact checkers shift their own opinion on this sort of stuff, right? We'll ban you for 6 months from social media if you talk about the Chinese leak theory. But then if everybody flips on a dime, then, well, you know, the fact checkers are okay with it so long as it's the right people who are saying it now. And the same monoclonal antibodies or hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin, right? It's all the same kind of stuff. It's misinformation when it's deemed inconvenient for a particular narrative. And then as soon as something is convenient for the narrative, it's not misinformation. So that shift has been really dangerous and really ugly. And again, it's if they think that it's going to end well for them, that somehow this is going to reestablish social capital, that people are going to get back together because you force them to only listen to one point of view, good luck with that.
I don't think they're thinking that, but I do think that intelligent people are waking up to the reality that being a part of these groups that are doing this, that are silencing opposing views, there's no long-term future in this because people recognize what is actually happening now. A growing number of people. There's still a lot of people that watch CNN that think I actually took horse dewormer.
Yep.
But there's a lot of people that recognize like, oh my God, this is just a lie. Like, oh my God, the news is lying about all kinds of things. And they're pushing a very limited perspective, a very limited point of view, and they're demonizing anything that has an opposing perspective.
If you're not convinced yet, why not have a look at some propaganda?
Digital ID from Australia Post
Actually, this sounds quite jolly. I like it.
is the easy and secure way to prove who you are.
Prove who you are. I mean, prove who I am. Who to? Who do I have to prove who I am to all of a sudden?
There's many times where Lucy needs to prove who she is.
Why? Why Why's Lucy got to prove who she is? Why can't she just get on with her life?
She uses digital ID to verify her identity.
Lucy need to wake up, don't she? Like, she's sat there, she's blindly walking into dystopia with a pot plant beside her. Lucy, wake up!
She can easily share her verified identity using her phone the next time she needs to prove who she is.
She's got this life of just proving who she is all the time.
Digital ID lets her share only the information required with the peace of mind that her identity is protected.
What level of intelligence would you be at if you watched this and went, oh, that's good. It's, Lucy's personal circumstances are greatly enhanced by this invasive technology that demands Lucy yield her personal sovereignty to the techno-corporate state.
In this country, it's been one of the most egregious offenses by the pharmaceutical drug companies is distorting the data on the addictive properties of opiates.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's a scary thing when you find out how many people. There was a statistic that was just released, that from people 18 to 49, fentanyl was the #1 cause of death. 100,000 people, which is insane that we're not hearing about this because it's such a large number of people. Like, this should be something that's on the news every day. It should be something that terrifies folks.
And you have the drug company, which is telling doctors that they've got a new product that's less addictive. It's so much less addictive that you can treat non-cancer pain and not get into trouble with it. It lasts 12 hours, but they know it doesn't last 12 hours. And when it wears off before 12 hours, they tell the doctors to increase the dose because that means they're not taking enough, not that their drug doesn't last 12 hours.
I remember a long time ago, man, you talked to me about this, about like, it stuck with me for the longest time because I was more turbulent back then. But it's this idea of like maintaining an even keel. You know what I mean? Find a way to be stable consistently every day in your own life, and stability will appear naturally around you, right? But if you are prone to reactivity, anger, freakouts, whatever it is, mania, whatever the thing is, then the people around you, they're always kind of worried, like, what version of this dude am I getting today? Am I going to get the happy version, or am I going to get the freaked out version? Am I going to get the angry version? I'm going to get the cool version. And if it's really extreme, the way your behavior is warping and shifting, you could only expect chaos around you because people get nervous around instability, right? So if all of us were reactive, like if suddenly a wave of reactivity swept through the whole planet and people started thinking it was normal to like pendulum between moods and to react to the moods and like, this is me, or what the fuck, or extremes, then you would expect the representation of all of us to be kind of fucked up. And so the idea is if we could all kind of calm down a little bit, find some peace, find a way to like be actually calm, not repressed. Like, you know, when you're freaking out on mushrooms and you try to pretend you're not, or when you go to a party where they give weed. I don't know if you've ever been to an edible weed party.
Yes.
And everyone's trying to pretend they're not freaking the fuck out.
One of the issues with social media, it's been pointed out by many people, is that I think maybe particularly Instagram, people look like they have a much better life than they really do.
Right.
So
by design.
Yeah, people are posting pictures of when they're really happy. They're modifying those pictures to be better looking. Even if they're not modifying the pictures, they're at least selecting the pictures for the best lighting, the best angle. So people basically seem, they're way better looking than they basically really are.
Right.
And they're way happier seeming than they really are. So if you look at everyone on Instagram, you might think, man, they're all these happy, beautiful people, and I'm not that good looking and I'm not happy. So I must suck, you know, and that's gonna make people sad. So when in fact, those people you think are super happy, actually not that happy. Some of them are really depressed. They're very sad.
How did you get from the early prank jackass inspired slapping your brother with, I think what you said was a ham, a joint of pork-based meat?
Yeah.
How did you? What are your next steps, and when did you notice that it was starting to have an impact?
Way too late, to be honest with you. Way too late. I was not focused on the impact of my content so much as just producing the next piece of crazy content I could. I legitimately did not think about the impact. Also, didn't really care. I think that was part of the Tokyo problem and the Japan problem.
Right, that's what we call it. Not Suicide Woods. Jokyo.
No, but that's what it is. I mean, we can call it whatever. That's what it is.
What happened there?
That was significant in my life for many reasons, but mainly because it took that for me to realize that what I was doing was so fucking wrong, in that social media was creating a person that it was just not me. My only motivator was views. I wanted views, because views equated to money, views equated to subscribers, which equated to success. And I started to skew the person that was Logan Paul. Like that kid that was on Vine, Logan, was now becoming this influencer who all he cared about was making the most noise that he could. And so the bigger, the louder, the faster, the better. And there was no forethought or foresight that went into the content we were creating.
Yeah, it can be very seductive, and I still have to be quite observant of the impact of fame and money. These are sort of powerful corruptors for people that have worked in entertainment ever since there's been an entertainment industry, to get other people's approval, to see your success escalating, and also in my own experience to feel that there's a kind of disjunct between that external phenomena and how I feel inside. I think any of us that lose our inner connection in favour of something that's happening externally, even if that's something blunt and basic like drug addiction, or something more abstract like fame and success, you can start to, what you said, is lose connection with your essence a little bit.
Absolutely.
With your little child, pure self, as it were.
Absolutely. Well, it's like, for me specifically, and I would caution anyone listening to this or watching this, depending on what medium you're on, to
smelling it.
If you're smelling this podcast or tasting it, I got in a cycle where my actions every day were reinforced by views. I knew that the crazier, more inappropriate things I did would get views, and so in my mind, this was a good thing. And I started chasing that, and I got sucked into the cycle. Like, what person? Everything I did was supported by an audience, and in my mind, that meant success. When in reality, that's not the case.
Well, also though, you can take recourse to much more traditional media. If you think of like television or film or music, we know that sort of content that has a negative impact, or content that's morally dubious, can be continually created if, like, according to your paradigm, it equates to success, views, money. And that's work that's done collaboratively with executives that have worked there for 20 years, not kids making it up on the hop with only your own instincts about what's right and wrong to guide you.
Yeah, there seems to be a real benefit to the struggle of training with someone who could fucking kill you on a regular basis. Like, you either sink or swim, but if you do swim, those guys who do swim, they think about those camps that have like a ton of killers. That just like everybody thrives off of everybody. Yeah. You got to just like not destroy each other in training, and you can all get through it better.
That's what happens when you train with fucking killers.
Yeah.
You got to, especially at this level. It's like, if you're just training with fucking turds, you're gonna be a fucking turd.
Stop defending as much, too. You're defending against your own fucking mind. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, so many people are super defensive all the time.
Right.
They're trying to keep themselves from being hurt, which is really smart. But what they're defending themselves from is words, perceived opinions, real, like, high-level social animal shit. They're not defending themselves against bear attacks, lions, arrows. They're defending themselves against, like, psychic impacts. You know what I mean? So it's not even a danger. Watch what happens. Nothing. You're fine. Nothing happens. You don't need the aggression, the defense. So yeah, man, that's really interesting to me. It's just your mind, and you're at war with your own fucking mind.
All day long for the rest of your life.
All day long for the rest of your life, every day, a raging war against yourself. I mean, again, I'm not saying that you don't need from time to time to set boundaries and tell someone, don't fucking do that. But at least for me personally, a lot of the time, the stuff that like I was like getting all bristly about, it really was just my own, it was my own bullshit. There wasn't really anything to get bristly about or to defend against there. And when you start doing that kind of like internal peace work, man, all of a sudden shit around you starts changing because it's your mind. The idea is if this is all your mind, then if your mind calmed down, maybe all this stuff around you would calm down too.
Yeah.
That's the idea. It might actually be the same thing. So if you start getting calm, if you start getting a little space between you and your thoughts, just maybe your enemies won't seem quite like enemies anymore. The people that you have been waking up in the middle of the night thinking about pouring acid in their mouth. Maybe you'll realize it's like the example that I read, and then I'll shut the fuck up. I'm sorry, everybody. The example that I read was it's like someone shoots an arrow at you, and they miss. It lands at your feet. This is when someone says something shitty to you, or you get upset about something someone's doing. You don't see that person for weeks, maybe. But the example is the arrow lands at your feet, and you pick it up. And you start stabbing yourself with the arrow going, why did they shoot me with this arrow? I can't believe they did that. Every time you bring them to your mind, every time you wake up thinking about them, every time you have that fake conversation when you see them and you're going to one-up them, that's just you going, yeah, why did they shoot me with this arrow?
Right.
You know, you're just massacring yourself with your own mind. You don't have to do that.